Welcome back to Just Saying. What do you get when you combine a woman who survived apartheid, rebuilt from abandonment, reversed her own diabetes, and now helps women blow up every limiting box they were handed? You get my guest, Wendy Alexander. She's the founder of Happy Career Hub, and she's here to flip the script on what it means to be a woman in midlife. Whether you're facing burnout, menopause, or just the nagging feeling that you were meant for more, this conversation is the spark you've been waiting for. Let's dive in. Hey friends, I'm here today with Wendy Alexander, founder of the Happy Career Hub and a woman who's survived apartheid, armed robbery, abandonment, single motherhood. I mean, it's like a country story, a country song, you know? Wah, wah, wah. Poor thing. I mean, you poor thing. Okay, Wendy, welcome to Just Saying.
Hello there, Jess. How are you?
I'm good. I don't know. Some days you're just so chipper and some days you're like, can I go lay down and go to bed already? Like, is it time? Like as you get older, you're thinking like, you look at the clock because you're wondering if it's close enough to bedtime yet.
Yep, I can relate.
It's funny because my husband and I at 10 o'clock, we liked, we try to go to bed, except for actually he tries to go to bed, but I like to listen to the TV as I fall asleep. So then he has to get back up in the middle of the night to turn off the TV, which is terrible, but but yeah, we have to like have a bedtime because we have to both get up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning every day. And it's a struggle. Being an adult is a struggle.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes I wish we didn't have to grow up, can be a naughty kid forever.
And I like how you say naughty, a naughty kid. Okay. Growing up in South Africa, do explain. Do explain.
Okay. So, look, I suppose as a kid, you don't realize you're growing up in a segregated society because, you're a kid playing on the block with your friends and you're living in a community where people look like you, because South Africa was segregated across even living spaces. So there would be suburbs for whites, suburbs for, biracial people, which is what I am, and then suburbs for black people. So, they had it entrenched in the law. But I didn't know that. When you're a kid, you don't know that because you see people that look like you're playing with the neighbors, all of this type of thing. And my reality into apartheid happened at age 7. We went to the beach one summer, and back then the beaches were also segregated, and there would be signs at all the beaches that would say, whites only, blacks or whatever. And so this beach we went to was close to family friends' home. There were no signs up on the beach, or we certainly didn't notice them. It was a very remote beach, very quiet beach. So we're thinking, okay, no one's here. We okay. We go on the beach. And then within probably, I'd say 45 minutes or so, the police turned up on the beach.
Yikes.
And they saw us. And they came across and said, you need to leave the beach. And we're kind of looking. I mean, I remember not understanding because I was young. I was only, 7 years old. But I do remember noticing the adults stiffen. Their body went rigid. And I thought, even as, with the wisdom of children always sense body language. They may not necessarily know the words or what's going on, but they can watch adults and go, the body language is off. So I remember looking at my dad and I'm thinking, why is he so rigid? Like, why is dad, like, first of all, he's super quiet, which my father wasn't. He's a talker. And then I see the police literally pointing to a sign which had been hidden by trees. And so we hadn't seen that. And so dad sort of gathers us up and the family friends and gather the kids up and we leave the beach. And as we drive off, I notice the sign and it says whites only. So I was like, oh, wow. Okay. What does that mean? And I've always been very curious as a kid. And so I was literally hammering my dad for answers. Like, what does that mean? Why can't we be on that beach? And my father, who had always been very good at indulging me in my curiosity. So when I was asking about books that he would read me or things like that, he always indulged me. He always answered my questions. And he just turned around and he said, can you for once in your life just be quiet? And I knew something was gravely off with that response from my father. So I was quiet. But then as soon as we got home, he sat us down, his kids, and he said, this is South Africa. This is what it is. This is what segregation means in terms of where you can go, what you can do, the opportunities available to you, all of that. And so that was reality at age 7. And it was a shock. It was a shock to the system because I remember trying to make sense of it, not being able to make sense of it. And I started to just write. That was when I actually started journaling a lot, writing, always trying to figure out life in South Africa. And then as I grew older and saw more and more things, because, once you see something, you can't unsee it. So once I knew
Right.
the country I lived in, I was like, okay, so then your eyes are noticing everything. So I would notice all the signs on the train stations, on the beach, at the movies, the restaurants. I was like, oh, okay, this is it. This is my reality. And I became very rebellious as a teenager. So, from age 7 to probably age 12, 13, 14, I knew what I was living in, but there wasn't a lot I did about it because I couldn't do anything about it. But when I sort of went to high school, I started participating in marches and in political activism to try, being one of those people that was trying to change the country. And that wasn't an easy road because that came with a lot of violence and a lot of threats to your safety because people were arrested, jailed, whipped, tear gassed, you name it. That was what happened when you were a political activist. And I saw a lot of that. I had friends who were jailed. I thankfully never ended up in jail, but I certainly was tear gassed more than once, had the whips more than once, so life
Oh my
was
God.
very, very strange growing up in that. And then I also knew parallel to that, my father was trying to get us out of the country. So he tried for about eight to 10 years. We were ejected for migration many times. So I suppose this is where some of the resilience comes in because I noticed my father never gave up. He just kept, you'd always know when we got the rejection letter because dad would then be very quiet and, quite somber for a while. And then he'd pick himself up and apply again. We did have success for migration to Australia when I was just probably a few months shy of my 21st birthday. So he'd been trying for a lot of years to get us out.
Wow.
And I think that happened because his sister had come to Australia. She met an Australian and married an Australian. And so then his second sister came out and they were given migration status based on family reunion. And I think because there were two sisters out here, back then Australia was doing the family reunion around migration. And so that's how our family eventually came to the country. But yeah,
And
that
that's
was
where
the
you're at.
start
And
of
that's where
life
you're
in
at.
South Africa.
And you're in Australia now, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I've lived since we migrated, most of my time in Australia. I did live in the US for short periods of time, 2 years from 2002 to 2004. And then again in 2016, I was in New York for about 10 months.
How do you
So,
like the States compared to where you're at?
well, I think the States for me now, I think is troublesome. But when I was there in 2002 and 2016, I felt like I was living in the glory days of America. I loved it, and
Yeah.
my daughter's father's American. So I actually took her there to get some of her heritage, shown to her and loved America. I think, it's not just America. The world is very troublesome at the moment.
I know the world is troubled. In America, we're a little sick right now. We have a cold. We just need a little bit of TLC. We need to come
Yeah.
together and stop fighting like brothers and sisters,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
siblings.
absolutely. I mean, that's the thing I did notice, the patriotism in America. I always love that. And I'm seeing that division has sort of lessened some of that patriotism in the US, which is a shame, right? It's
Yeah,
it's
I agree with that.
disappointing to see.
I we got go off on a tangent, and I know I won't go that way, and I totally agree with you. I always, I've never been to Australia, and I've always thought, gosh, I wonder what it would be like to go to Australia. And I just think it's interesting that I just think it's interesting. It's weird is that when you're in the States for so long, I mean, you kind of have a little bit of, world travel. Like you've
Yeah,
done it all. Like you've lived
I
in
have.
different places, not just travel of the world, but you know, you've homes, whatever they call it. Homes. I don't know what the word I'm trying to think of, but it doesn't matter. But you've been all over the place, so you kind of get the gist of different places. So I think that's actually kind of cool. So I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so after you moved there, you were 21, right? And how was it? What was the next thing in your life? Did you get married or did you find somebody to?
Well, I finished university in those first few years because I'd done 1 year of university at University of Cape Town, and then when we migrated, I completed my degree year in Australia, and probably soon after that, I met the person who then became my daughter's father, so my partner, and we were together for almost 10 years. And it was probably the first 5 years were good, but then the next 5 years were very difficult, challenging. We broke up a few times and got back together a few times. For me, so here's where I know some of the self-esteem issues that I had suffered growing up as a woman of color in a place like South Africa. I can look back on it now and I can see where that actually drove me to attract a relationship that wasn't good for me, right? Because if you're not clear and you haven't healed certain things, then you not going to attract the best for yourself. I didn't know it at the time. I will say that. I didn't know that at the time. That came years later after I'd
Well,
been through the
hindsight. They
relationship.
always say hindsight's like,
Yeah.
you don't really see the whole picture until you look back at how you handled certain things, and you're like, dang it, I wish I did this better, or I didn't do that, or I missed an opportunity. I mean, hindsight's always
Yeah,
better, but whatever.
absolutely. But having said that, even though I gained the hindsight sort of later, I got my daughter out of that relationship. And so that's the part of that life that I will never regret and it was difficult. We split up. Him and I finally split up for good when I was 4 months pregnant. He had an affair. I found out. That was the end of it for me. But he didn't handle all of that very well. So there was domestic violence. And I literally, left the
While you're
relationship
pregnant,
while I'm pregnant. Yeah.
what a
And so
douchebag.
there was incredible trauma with that whole experience because I was trying to bring the baby to term in the safest way because I'd been hurt. I ended up in hospital. So I'm trying to cope with the stress. The house, I have to sell the house. So I started my life with my daughter, having lost my home, having lost the money because at that stage, I was starting to do really well in my career, but through losing the house, through him emptying the bank accounts,
Mhm.
I lost everything. So I'm starting over with this baby in my
And that's
belly.
what men do, not all men, because some men are great, but what men do is they like to keep you attached to them financially because even though you guys aren't happy together, he doesn't want you to leave. Like,
Yeah,
it seems like guys
well,
don't want you to go and be off and do better. They want you to stay with them because they're really afraid to be alone, actually, but they don't admit it. And so they connect you to them financially so that you can't leave,
yeah.
you know?
Well, I look, and I've seen that through the work that I now do. I see that with a lot of women where they really are challenged in leaving because financially they've never set up that financial independence.
Yeah.
And then some of them do end up staying in rotten relationships for longer than they need to, right? But I was certainly one of those, as I said, and so I don't have any judgment on other women. I just try and help them
Right.
build the confidence, build the financial muscle so that if they want to leave, they leave. Because I know that, I was also stubborn. The other thing is I was really stubborn. I wanted the relationship to work. I was pregnant
Well,
to
because
this
you
guy.
want the baby to have a daddy, and you want that whole picture because your mom and dad gave you that,
Yeah,
and you wanted your story to have a happy ending. But
absolutely. But
sometimes,
sometimes you can literally put yourself in danger for a happy ending, because it wasn't happy. And I knew that. I knew that through those last couple of years of that relationship. I look back and I go, gosh, I was really miserable through that time. How the heck did I stay that long? But, as I said, there's an emotional stubbornness, wanting it to work, all of these things. So
But
I
God had a plan for you. God had a plan. He had something in
absolutely,
mind, something totally different.
because as I came out of that, so this is where, the career transition slowly started back then. So
Started
once
climbing the
I had,
ladder, the corporate ladder.
yeah, once I'd had my daughter, I realized, okay, I'm it. I have to provide for her. I'm not going to he wasn't supporting financially. I'm not getting a thing from this guy. I've lost everything. So I have to start over. And I was trying, and at the time, there was a level of desperation, because I was like, I need to feed this kid. I've got to pay off the debt, because the house sold at a loss. So there was a huge debt. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? So I was like, I need to make more money. That was the only thing driving me. I have to make more money to be able to support myself and this daughter, put a roof over our head, all of these types of things. And then I started to ask myself questions. So this is also through journaling. I was like, well, how do I start? I need to talk to the people that hire people, that give people more money. That was like, it was like a literal logical little pathway I took. Okay, how do I talk to these people? And so I started to, and as a writer by nature, I can tend to be quite inward. So I'm not necessarily, I've sort of worked on becoming more of an extrovert over the years, but back then I wasn't. And plus, I'd been emotionally battered. So I was
Right?
definitely inward. But I was like, well, desperate times calls for desperate measures. That means I've got to step up. No one else can take care of this kid.
Yeah, you got to put yourself out there more. Like,
That's
you have
right.
to, yeah.
And so that's what
Yeah.
I had to do. I reached out to recruiters. I reached out to hiring people. And all I asked them for some time, and I said, I just want to pick your brains, if I may, to find out what I need to do to increase my prospects in the workforce. Now, I will say most people were incredibly generous. People were really, and here's another lesson that I learned, and it's one that I still pass on to some of the people I work with. It's like, if you don't ask, then you don't know if someone's actually going to help you, open a door for you, do something. If you sit back and you assume that no one's going to care and no one's going to help you, how do you know that for certain? So I
Yeah.
challenge people to challenge their perceptions.
They say the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So
That's right.
if you
That's
don't,
right.
if you're a squeaky wheel, they're going to come over and oil you up and give you what you need. But if you don't say anything, they're going to think you're just fine.
That's right. That's right. And so I did ask. That was the first thing. I asked for help. People gave me ideas on how I could rewrite my resume, how I could interview better. I mean, these people were amazing in terms of the help that they gave me. And then I started to execute on that. I started to put it into practice. So I was like, okay, let's try the resume out. Started sending it out, got loads of rejection. And here's another lesson. Don't give up. Just like my father didn't give up. I had this example of a man who didn't give up migrating his family out of a country that was becoming very dangerous for us. So I remembered, dad never gave up. I was like, okay, there's a role model. I just have to keep going. Even if they say no, I just have to keep going. I've got to get up. Sometimes I cried, of course, when you get rejected.
But guess what you're doing? You're the role model for your daughter, and
Yeah,
she sees you getting up and keep going and keep doing. I sometimes joke and say, I wish my kids, my son, would see that I'm working all these jobs and doing all these things, and would like say, "Huh, my mom can do it. I can do it." But no, doesn't work that way for my son. But
yeah.
anyways, but
I
you're a
actually think
positive.
the lessons do go in their brain, and sometimes it comes out when you least expect it. Like sometimes I've said certain things to my daughter, I've shown her things, and I think, gosh, does it ever sink in? And then all of a sudden, she'll just surprise me. She's an adult now, obviously. And I'm like, wow, okay, so I thought that didn't resonate or didn't register, but it did register. And I
Yeah.
think that's the thing. We got to trust that sometimes the lessons we pass on, it may not seem like it's resonating with them at the time, but then 2, 3 years later, they do something that completely surprises you and you go,
And
whoa, okay.
I wrote a book, and I realized at the end of the book that, and I was not ridiculing and not putting down, but like, I don't know how I would say. I guess maybe I wasn't fair to my mom in my book. And at the end, I realized that I'm just like my mother. And like, I am a spitting image of my mom, and everything that my mom did, I do now. And I realized a lot from just writing a book. And at the end, I realized a lot. So it makes you kind of sit back and like you say, hindsight is,
Yeah.
is getting a bird's eye view many years back and looking at it makes a whole difference. But yeah, sometimes our kids will turn out just like us. So, but
Yeah.
anyways, I
Yeah.
was I was just trying to say that and I took us off. You were on a roll, but you were talking about climbing the corporate ladder, never giving up because you were trying. They helped you with your resume, and you kept putting yourself out there. And so, did you get some takers?
Yeah. So eventually I landed an interview. Finally, this is after putting the resume out. I landed an interview and I didn't actually get the job offer. So that was I was actually very, very disappointed. And I remember crying. And then I spoke to one of the recruiters who had helped me. And she said to me, so what are you going to do about it? Are you just going to give up now? And I said, no. I said, I'm just crying because I said, I really thought. And then she said to me, go back to the person that interviewed you and ask them where you could have improved. She said, now maybe they're not going to come back with an answer, but she said, you're not going to know unless you ask. So I went back to this lady and I said to her, I respect your decision. You gave the role to someone else, but I'm just trying to get better at interviewing. And so where could I have done better? And she was amazing. She said to me, well, you spoke too long on, and she gave me the questions that I spoke too long on. She said, and there were at least 2 or 3 questions where you waffled. She said, I knew you knew what you were talking about, but you didn't get your point across. And I was like, wow. And so she said,
Picky? Are they picky? Jeez Louise.
yeah.
God.
But the thing is, that was gold for me because
Yeah.
I ended up, and she said, all you've got to do, Wendy, is just go practice. She said, take your answers, look at the questions. She said, and try to give an answer in 2 minutes or less. Be succinct, be sharp, because she said, that's what people remember. When you waffle, a lot of what you share with them gets lost in the waffle. So then they don't really know, or they don't really remember how you can actually help their company or their project or their
Right.
business, right? And I was like, okay. So then I practiced and I would talk to the baby. I mean, I would like say the question out, the baby would be bouncing in the bouncing. I practiced. I mean, the baby, I'm like, the baby doesn't know what I'm talking about, but I didn't care. I was just, I'm going to practice. I'd look at myself in the mirror. It was just all mirror work, baby, talking to whoever would listen to me. I had a couple of friends. I said, can you practice with me? They go, yep. And I said, make sure I speak succinct. Make sure I'm sharp. Don't let me waffle. And then I landed another interview that was about 2 months later after that first one where I got rejected and didn't get the job. And I got that job. And that job was the start of my whole life turning around because first of all, I had put up a figure in my mind of what I needed to be able to pay my debt, to be able to secure a new home for my daughter and I couldn't buy at that time. I was like, I'm going to rent, but I just need a roof over our head because I'd been staying with my parents at that stage. So I'd come up with this figure, I'd done the numbers, and I landed this role, and it paid double what my figure was. Like it increased my
Woohoo.
income by double. So I was like, okay, something's worked here. And then I started this role in corporate and slowly started to climb the corporate ladder. But there was a couple of things that happened. One of the things that happened, and here's where I like to encourage women who think that they can't ask for what they want, because there were only 2 things that mattered to me at that point. One was to be a good mother, because I'm a single mother. I now have to be everything to my daughter. I've got to be mum, dad, taxi, whatever, you name it. The other was I need to be good at my job so that I can continue to thrive and pay off the debt and create something for her and I. That was the only things driving me at that time. And what I ended up doing was, when I was in that interview, I said that to them. I actually said, listen, I am a single parent and I would like to work some of the time from home because I'm not ready to put my young child into daycare every day, all day. And I said, I was shaking when I asked for that because I thought they're not going to give me the job, right? This is quite a big ask. But I said to them, listen, my proposal is this. Why don't we trial it for 3 months? And then we review it. And if you're happy with my work and I'm happy with the arrangement, we keep going forward. And they agreed to that because I'd come up with a proposal of let's trial it.
Like they had a way out.
They had a way out. I gave
Yeah.
them a way out. But in my head, I decided they're not going to get the way out because I'm going to perform 150%, which is what I did and delivered everything. I mean, I would work. I was very fortunate in that stage. My baby was a baby that slept through the night from a very young age. And so as soon as she would go down, and she would go down at 6:00 at night, I would do extra work. I would work from 6 till 8. Like I just kept pushing to deliver. And by the time the 3 months came, I was over delivering. And they were like, oh no, we'll keep that arrangement. That arrangement's clearly working. And that
Right.
is in fact how I went forward in my career. Every contract, every role that I got after that, I made it very clear to them that motherhood mattered a lot to me and that being really good at my job mattered a lot to me and that I could do both. And I always would offer the trial period, but I knew how to do it by that stage. By the time it came to the 4th or 5th contract, I had it down pat. Nobody was questioning me. I was able to work from home long before working from home became fashionable. And that
Right.
made a big difference to my career. It made a huge difference to my career and to my happiness because I was able to be there for my daughter, And then as she got older, she went into daycare because obviously I did want her to also mix with other kids and things like that. But the first few years of her life, I was able to do it in a way that worked for both me and for my career, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I did also try to pick a career that kept me home with the kids, and I loved it. I was really happy and fortunate to have that. And then I too, I'm still at home with the kids, so I feel like there was only a small little time when I wasn't with the kids. I think 2 years, when I first got my job at the TV station that I work at. And
Yeah.
those 2 years, and then we had to go to remote working, and I was like,
Yes.
well, this is great. And I've never stopped being remote, so I'm really
Yeah.
lucky in that respect. But yeah, I mean, it's something to be said about a mom who gets to stay home, and not everybody gets to do it, but it's special when you can do it.
Yeah.
And it worked out for you.
Yeah, it did. It did.
Okay, so you got real successful and you're a great mom, great single mom. What came next? I mean, what hits us all? Dun,
Well,
dun, dun.
so I,
As I
you know,
as I
my,
pull out my fan. No, I'm just teasing. Oh yeah, we were talking about that earlier. We were sitting there and I'm like, oh God, just I can't even. I'm just so I'm dying. Anyways, I'm sorry.
yeah, that's
I
okay.
keep
So
it.
what
I keep
the
it handy.
next major thing? Well, I did meet my partner Peter when my daughter was about. So we got together when she was about 12. So I was a single mom for about 12 years, and then I met him. He came into my life. We met through work actually, and we were great friends, and we were business partners for a long time before we actually got together. But he turned out to be he's been my person. He's my person. We've been together for 16 years now. Um, and so that was the next big thing. It was a fortunate event. I found the right person. But then as we were starting to, build in our relationship, then the midlife came. Okay. And I don't even know why it hit me so hard. Like, I've tried to figure it out, but because I was incredibly successful at the time, I was working in this high-powered job, making really good money. My daughter was growing. All of these things were happening. He was there. But for some reason, the actual symptoms of menopause and midlife just slammed me. Insomnia set in, so no sleep, um, all the hot flashes, all the symptoms, and the brain fog was the worst. And the brain fog was it undermined my confidence. So I'm this well put together woman thriving in corporate, and then all of a sudden the brain fog is setting in and I'm forgetting things and I'm not performing at the levels that I'm used to performing.
Yeah,
And I realized,
you're like singing my story right now, woman. I feel like the brain fog thing is, I didn't even realize that was a thing, and then I'm all over the page, like when I'm talking with somebody sometimes, like I do meet and greets like before my episodes, and I'm like, they're like, "Are you ADHD?" And I'm like, "What? No." And I'm just like, I'm acting like a crazy person because I can't think straight. Does
yeah.
that make sense?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I also didn't know that was part of it. But then, and I think before we got on the podcast, I alluded and I said to you, I did go and try and talk to doctors, the GPs and things. And I will say, and I think this is true for a lot of women, we don't get the support that we really need with a lot of healthcare professionals. That's what I've found. And women that I've worked with since have told me the same thing. They've gone to their doctors. They've said, this is happening to me. The doctor says, yes, you're in menopause, but they only look at that symptoms of the body changing, the period slowing down, all of that. They don't look at the other symptoms. They don't look at the emotional symptoms that happen. They don't look at anxiety that sets in for some women. They don't look at brain fog that sets in for some women, because not all women go through that, but a lot of women do. And also a lot of the time that's happening in our mid-career, which means we under a lot of stress. We're performing at high levels. So that's already stress. Now we're not sleeping. So that's another layer of stress. Now we're having hot flashes every 5 minutes. And in my case, I had severe nausea with my hot flashes. So I would be in meetings and I would have to run out of the room. Hot flash would hit. I'd have to dash out to the room, to the bathroom. This happened often enough for people to notice it. So my bosses, especially my male bosses, pulled me aside and said, what's going on with you? Like, you're leaving these meetings in a rush. And I'm like, how the hell do I even explain this? And this is the thing we're afraid at work to say,
Yeah.
because what's happening at work, there's these stereotypes. There's the woman is not at her best anymore when she hits midlife. Yeah. All of these things you start being stereotyped, and then you end up having, and so a lot of the time we don't share what we're going through because we're afraid that it's going to impact our livelihood, our income. We're going to lose our jobs. And I did that for a while until I realized, hang on a minute. I don't know, maybe back to the political activist person, there's a bit of a fighter in me. I'm always going to try and fight for something that for me feels right. And when I started noticing and having conversations with other women at work, I thought, why are we bowing to this? Why are we not finding our place in corporate, you know? Or taking stock of our life and going, is this really what I want to do? And I did both. I was like, I'm going to take stock. No, I actually don't want to do this anymore. I don't want this high pressure job. First of all, my daughter was grown by then. I was like, and I'm in a partnership. We're both making good money. And I'm going, I don't need to work this hard anymore. That's number one. I don't have to put my kid through school. She's done with school. So then I was like, what do I really want to do? And one of the things I realized was I don't want to work in such stressful environments. And when you're in high powered corporate, that's what it comes with, because everything becomes about the bottom line, about revenue, about money. And I was like, and that means high pressure. You're delivering, I was delivering projects up to 200, $300 million, high pressure.
That's
And
crazy.
yeah. And I was like, and I'm not sleeping. So I took stock of my life and I realized I no longer wanted to do corporate. And I actually took myself through a process, and I said, okay, you're gonna analyze what you really want to do. What are you good at? What do you like doing? And at that time I had the career coaching, was very, very part-time, because that's when I had created that success all those years ago. People started to ask me for help because a lot of people knew my story. They knew I had lost everything. And then a year later, I'm in this corporate gig and I'm climbing the ladder, and my daughter and I are starting to travel, and I have a new home, and they like, how did you do that? So people came to me, and this was friends, family, and some colleagues. And I just started to help people. But out of that help, a business was born. And I started to career coach. I always loved writing. So I started to help people write their CVs and their LinkedIn profiles and all these things. But very part-time. I probably only did 5 hours on it a week. By the time I came to menopause, I looked at life and I go, even when I feel really crappy, even when I haven't had enough sleep, even when I feel down and anxious and all of this, when I write people's CVs or I take them through interview coaching and I watch the transformation, I feel really happy. I can be feeling crap, but I still know how to do that. And I actually see it make a difference for people. And I'm like, what am I doing in this corporate gig? So I
Right.
left. I actually created an exit plan and left, and took my business that was 5 hours a week. I took it full time. It is now a part-time business because I've now gotten to the stage where I'm at the next level where I'm like, I don't want to work 40 hours a week anymore. I only want to work, maybe 30 or 25 or 30. So I've created that. But all of that came from midlife, and it literally knocking me for a six, knocked me off my feet. And I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. But I have a lot of empathy for women in midlife because I realize not a lot of people understand us, and especially if you've been a high performer for a long time, and the minute you start going through these symptoms, people just expect you to perform at that level, even if it's
Right.
murdering you. And I was like, and so I took the business full time. That's what I do now. But in my work, I also work with women who don't necessarily want to leave corporate. They love their corporate jobs, but they exhausted. So then I'm like, okay, now we need to campaign for you in the workplace.
Or like have balance or figure out the right balance. Because sometimes,
Correct.
I'm burning out a little bit because I have 2 jobs and then I have the podcast and I'm trying to promote my book and I'm writing another book and I still have to cook dinner and do the laundry and clean the house and do all the things. And that's like, I don't really have good balance of like, I just want to write, you know,
Yeah.
and the podcast is the fun thing. So, but I do it for fun. And, but my husband also makes good money. It's like, I don't actually shouldn't have to work, but I can't, me personally, cannot allow my husband to work 2 jobs while I'm, doing the fun things that I enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. Yeah.
But to me, I just, for me, I'm just going to keep going till I can't go no more. There was some famous person, I can't really say the name because everybody will be like judgy if I say the name, but he said, in business and in life, the one thing you need to do is you need to work hard. And so whether that be on your passion, being a coach, or whether that be whatever it is you're going to do, just whatever you do, just work hard because, you'll bear the fruit of it as
Yeah.
time goes on. But I think it's great that you took a path of reinventing yourself and finding your own narrative and making that a, a thriving business. I mean, because reinventing yourself, it's not selfish, right? It's
No.
survival for yourself and your well-being. And it's not a selfish thing if you want, like me, I want to be a writer. It's not selfish that I'm doing it, but I'm finding that I can squeeze it in my
Yeah.
life the way it is. But my husband calls it my hobby, you know. and it's not a hobby to me.
Yeah.
It is something that I'm doing. I've always wanted to do, and now I'm on my second book. I'm almost done with it, and he's going to be, it's going to be one of those things. It's an accomplishment, and my book
Yes.
is about bucket list, and this is on my bucket list is to write it, be an author. And I might not have put that in my book that I wanted to be an author, but it's always been in the back of my head. Like I wanted to be
Yeah.
a writer, and and I didn't know I was creative until I started doing it. A lot of times people, they always think like, oh, maybe one day, or I always thought I'd do this, but then they don't give themselves credit, and they don't realize that they do have a creative inkling in their,
Yes. Yeah.
soul. I didn't know I was this creative. I mean, shoot, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, reinventing yourself, it's not about being selfish. It's about doing what's best for you, and making, you don't only have one life.
Yeah.
This is it, dude. And if you're not working on making yourself and your family happy, then what are we doing? You
What
know?
are we doing? Look, I think that people use that word reinventing, and they do. They bring it with us with a connotation of selfishness, but I actually see it as a means of survival. If you're the most important thing we need to take care of is our health and well-being. And if your role, which is what I discovered through that midlife journey, was that my corporate gig was paying me a lot of money, but it was literally stripping me of my health and well-being. And so in the end, when I took stock, I was like, well, you can't keep going, because you know what? When you lose your health, you pretty much lose everything, because sometimes people spend so much time. There's an old saying about wanting to make money, but then they spend so much money trying to regain their health. And I knew that that was not a sustainable model for me. I knew because I wasn't sleeping, I was anxious, I was unwell, all of these things. And I was like, if I want to be healthy, because the other side was, I want to see my daughter grow, get married. I would love to see grandchildren. So I was like,
Right.
well, then you're going to have to take care of your health, girl. This job is killing you at the moment. And so that was the driver for me to make the change and to reinvent. It was driven by health and well-being, but also by a desire to actually feel contentment and happiness. Because
What about for women that feel like they're too old to start over? Like, I mean, you're talking about you at a corporate position. I mean, you're dialed into your career basically, and you're making the top money. And somebody who might say, "Oh, I want to, decoupage or whatever, I want to be an artist, or I want to, throw my hat in the ring and be an actress, or whatever it is that tickles your fancy." And what do you say about people that are, like, oh, I just couldn't do that. Like they couldn't be as brave as you were and taking
well,
that leap?
I always say to people, because that is one of the things I get from most of the women I work with. They say, "Oh, it's too late for me. I can't do it." And I say to them, "Well," so the question I go through a process with people, because I always try to identify what is the passion, because like you, mine is writing as well, right? I realized, because in my head from a young age, when my dad used to read Shakespeare and all those books to me, I was like, I want to be an author. But life got in the way, South Africa, apartheid, moving to a country, all of these things got in the way, and I became very practical. But when I started to write my own resumes and have success, I realized that that was a different form of writing. I could still write. I could create. And so I built that side business. I had my corporate career. By the time I left corporate, one of the things that I do, and I do it purely for enjoyment, is I'm writing little novels, right? That is my joy project. I don't know if the novels will ever get published. I'm writing it for me. Maybe I'll put it out there one day. And so I always say to women, how do you want to spend the latter years of your life? Because I believe that women, for the first few decades of their life, they're taking care of everyone but themselves, right? We're
Right.
taking care of hubby. We're taking care of kids. Some of us are even nurturing our colleagues. You know,
Yeah.
I was working with people to help them get better careers. So I'm nurturing colleagues and friends and family. We also get to the stage where we're taking care of aging parents. So it's always outside of ourselves. And so one of the things I always try and get women to identify is, what is the thing that is just about you? In your case, it's writing. In my case, it's also writing. For some people, it's painting. For some people, it's nature walks, whatever. And I'm like,
Cooking, like a cookbook. I know
cooking.
there's a lot of women out there that have done nothing but cooking for their family for 20 years, and they've got some good recipes. And I know a lot of women are out there going, man, I should put this in a book. Like I put mine in a book for my kids, but it's like I never published it. It's just like you know how you do a self
Yeah.
printing and all that. I put together like a beginner book for my kids, like how to boil water, basic
Yeah.
stuff, how to make
Yeah.
a hamburger, you know what I mean? The meals that I like to cook, my mom had a recipe growing up. We called it boiling meat and noodles. Sounds exactly what it is, and you serve it with mashed potatoes, and it's like the poor man's meal. But the kids, everybody loves it, so I put it in the book because I want them to know how to make boiling meat and noodles.
Yeah, that's right.
My
Well, I
mom
mean,
and
I
dad were
think
like, when we were broke, that's all we used to eat: boiling meat and noodles.
that's right. I mean, some of those recipes from grandma and even my parents, they gold. They're absolute gold,
Yeah.
And they comfort food for me,
Yeah. But I'm saying what I was getting at was like there are women out there that the simple thing that they do every day and have been doing for 20 years or longer or however, I know a lot of people have always thought, oh, I should put, everyone's always like, oh, mom, you should put those in a book. And a lot of people are told, a lot of women, that they cook well and they have recipes and they have a whole bunch, but they just don't want to take that step because they're just so scared of changing like what they have and for the risk of it not selling or the risk that you put yourself out there and it turned out to be a flop. Like I wrote a book and honestly, it's about my crazy life, but who cares? Who cares about my life? Like, do they really want to read it? Am I going to have any sales? Probably not. And a lot of books don't sell. I mean, that's just the reality of life or whatever. And it is a gut punch too. And you're thinking like, nobody likes me. Nobody wants to read my book. But then again, it's the art of accomplishing it. But then again, if you're not making money and that's what you need to do, I don't
So
know.
I always say my thing is I've never ever encouraged a woman or man. I do work with some men, not many, but I do work with some men. And I never encourage anyone to just walk out of a job
Yeah.
because you are going to put yourself under financial stress. And I've yet to see people make smart decisions when they're under financial stress. It's
Right.
difficult, right? It's really hard. And so I always say like if women come to me and once we dig and we find what the passion is, what the creative side is, then I'm like, okay, how can we figure out for you to keep earning money and doing something that really gives you joy? Because
Yeah,
for
you do it
me,
on the
that
side. You do
do
it
it
on the
on the
side, and
side.
if
It
it
becomes
takes
a
off,
side gig. That's right.
you can ditch the other stuff. It's funny because my husband always says this. He's like, and he tells this to people all the time, and young people when they're like, "I'm going to quit this job. This job sucks," and he's like, "Never quit a job unless you have another job
Another job.
that you're going to start like
Yeah,
right away. Never, never, never quit because it could be 3 months before you find another job, and
that's
then
right.
what are you going to do to pay the bills? Never, ever, ever quit your job unless you got
No,
one in hand."
find a way to do what you love. Like I was obviously doing the career coaching on the side, the 5 hours a week. So that was my little side project, my joy project. I was writing my little novels on the side. So I made sure that I kept joy in my life. That
Yeah.
even though I was working in these high-powered, stressful corporate gigs, that there was a level of joy in my life. And this is what I encourage people to do, because sometimes the joy ends up turning into your permanent thing.
Have you written your own memoir? Because your life reads like like a movie.
Well, I have written this book, which is about my journey through menopause, internal uprising.
Oh, that's awesome. Where can
And
we find your book?
it's on Amazon. If you put the title in Internal Uprising and my name, Wendy Alexander, it'll pop up straight away.
Perfect.
So I wrote that book because, as I said, for me, writing was always a way to process life. And when I was really struggling with menopause, I started to journal, like really journal. So there are excerpts of my journal in this book, and I was very afraid to share it because it's vulnerable and you literally sharing some of your weaknesses and where
Yep.
you were really struggling. But when I had sent it off to the editor, she came back and she said to me, this book can be published as it is. She said, you're a good writer. You clearly love writing. But she said, something's missing from it. And she says, up to you. Do you want the feedback? I said, absolutely, give me the feedback. And she said, there's something missing from it, and I can't quite put my finger on what's missing. And I said to her, well, I said, I wrote this journal over the years when I was really struggling through menopause. And some of what is feeding this book is from the journal, but I haven't. And she said to me, if you trust me enough, can you send me a couple of excerpts from your journal? So I sent her that, and I was terrified. And she came back and she said, that's what's missing from the book. And so I actually have incorporated just how much I struggled straight out of the journal, where I was cursing my body, feeling like my body had betrayed me, where I was not sleeping and crying at night because I was so exhausted and all I wanted to do was sleep. Where
I'm
I would.
exhausted too. I mean, I've tried not to yawn like 5 times. And it's not your story. It's not your story. It's just that it's the end of the day. And like I've been working since 5:30 this morning. And I'm just like, try not to yawn, Jessica. Don't yawn. Don't do it. And it's because I love your story. I'm really interested. That's why I was like, man, your story, your everything you've gone through is just reads like a Hallmark movie. And it's like you totally can make that a Netflix thing.
Yeah, look, people have told me, I mean, I've lived a lot of life. I actually realized that the other day because someone asked me about, it was a young person, a young adult. And he said to me, he says, you've lived a lot of life. You've come through a lot of things. And I said,
Yes.
I
Isn't
have.
it
And he
crazy?
said, you should write a book or I said, I do have a book, but it's primarily focused on the menopausal journey. But there are excerpts from apartheid and how that affected me because I realized that drove a lot of my decision making, a lot of things in my life.
Right.
So there's that one. And I am working on a book that's about rising above. So I love Maya Angelou's poem about I rise. And I read that poem often to keep me motivated or to keep me just getting up when things get hard. And so the book is actually going to be about rising through. And that is probably the life story. That is.
Well, Alexa Wise gets me to get up every morning. I ask my Alexa, no, don't say anything, Alexa. But I ask her to wake me up at 6 or 5:30, whatever time I'm getting up in the morning. Okay, can I ask you a question? So, Happy Career Hub, right?
Yeah.
Is that the name of your coaching? Did I get that
Yes.
right?
So Happy Career Hub, our website is happycareerhub.com. And that's the name of the business because my aim is to try and get people to the happy careers.
Right.
That is, I have my happy career. And so I want to try and give women encouragement that they can actually have a great career. There are processes that you have to go through. And like I said, I don't tell women to quit a job. So I'll say, okay, you've discovered you like to paint. Okay. So we're going to keep the job because we need the money to keep flowing in. But now we're going to look at how often you can take an art class. Because sometimes when women just dabble, they end up finding that it really pulls them. I mean, I know a woman who started dabbling in art and started painting, and some of what she painted was amazing. She is now selling her art for hundreds of dollars and eventually was able to leave her corporate career and pursue the art full time. But I say to them, if you try to pursue it with no financial backing, you are going to find that will waver very quickly because nothing stresses us more than not being able to pay the bills, not being able to pay the mortgage or anything. And I discourage people from doing that. So for me, it's a parallel thing. You do the side thing parallel to what you're doing. And let's see what happens, because for me,
Right.
as I did my exit plan out of corporate, I started to take on more career coaching clients. And I started to write more resumes for people. And so I was building the business while I was exiting corporate so that
Right.
I didn't have that financial pressure. It just, I've never seen it work. And I've been
How do you
doing
like
this
working for yourself?
look, I love it. I do sometimes, I will say I do get lonely because I am a people person.
Yeah.
I was delivering big projects with a lot of people, big teams. So there are times when I do get lonely, but I've worked out ways to counteract that. So I've put myself into business groups with women
And
and
podcasting.
and podcasting.
This
And
is fun.
we go out, we enjoy a coffee, we share business
Right.
ideas. The podcasting has been amazing, and I've done many. Like since I started podcasting, it's been 2 years, probably close to 100 now around the
Oh,
world. Because I like talking, I like sharing the story, and I
how do I
also like
rate? No, just teasing. Yeah, I
yeah,
let you talk. You got to say good things because all you did is talk. No, I'm
yeah,
just teasing.
yeah.
No,
No, I mean absolutely. It's
I
engaging to
also,
share.
well, I also was like, I don't have a lot of friends because I have a few. I have Allie and I have a girlfriend at work, and I don't really have a lot of friends because my friend is my husband, my kids. I work a lot, and so I don't have a community around me. But I'm building one through my podcast. I meet people like you, Wendy, and I'm just like I totally connect with you. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
I'm just saying, like I feel as though like everybody that I come across on my podcast is special. And I too believe that you were meant to do what you're doing. The path that God wanted you on is for you to help
yeah.
others, and you're doing that. I think that's real special. I mean, you're just a dream.
Thank you.
You're very special. And I think that people should go get your book. Say what your book is again.
It's called Internal Uprising. So that's
Internal Uprising,
Uprising and Wendy Alexander. So if you look up my
Wendy.
name, the
Well,
title and the name, it's on Amazon.
here's the thing. If you go to my website at justsayin.net and you go to podcast and you scroll down and you click on this episode, and you click Wendy's name, it's going to take you to her website. And from her website, you have a landing page website, correct?
Yes, I do. I do. Yes,
Okay.
it gives some services. There's a free resource which I call Mining Your Story, and that's where I start with every person I work with. I get them to mining your story is about going into your journey and figuring out the patterns in your life and what has always brought you joy, because that's the first clue to the career you need to be doing. And so
Perfect.
that's a workshop, and I've put it up there because I want people to actually start there and go dig into their stories and go, you know what? I've always painted. Or you know what? I really love flowers. I've always been arranging flowers. Or you know what? I like working with people, and this is what I want to do with people. I like
Or I
working
want to
with
do
the
a daycare
youth.
from my home, or I want to do,
Correct.
a daycare. Man, let me just tell you, I come from a daycare perspective because I used to own a preschool, and you can make some good money and you have fun. You get to finger paint and sing and eat, kind of not the greatest food, but it's, fun food for kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Macaroni and hot dogs. I mean, it's fun. Everything's fun, and you get to do art projects. It's just a fun thing, and you get to be with your kids, and they learn, and you learn, and it's a great money. You make
Great
good
money.
money doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But that's something women can do that not men. Most men can't start a daddy daycare. Does not really exist. Not too many. Let me
No.
just say.
No.
And so I'm always an advocate for people because no matter where you live, we need more childcare. There's
Correct.
not enough good
Absolutely.
ones out there.
No.
So, but I want to put a pin in it here. I just want to say thank you so much for taking all this time, and your story is just really
Thank you.
inspiring. And I hope people go out and grab your book. Go to my website, justsayin.net, go to podcasts, scroll down, find this episode, click Wendy's name, and it'll take you directly to her website. That's the easiest way to do it. Do you have any social media sites or anything like that you want to?
So I'm on LinkedIn. That's where I give all of my free advice. There's videos up there. There's a lot of articles I've published up there. And the handle is Wendy A. Alexander at LinkedIn. So if you go to LinkedIn and you search for Wendy A. Alexander, I'll probably pop up there.
Okay, so I'm
Yeah.
going to go and get you. If I'm not already your friend, I'm going to friend you, and you better friend me
Yeah.
back because
Yeah, absolutely. I always friend my podcasting people back.
my LinkedIn page is growing. I've got like 8,500 people. So it's
Yeah.
getting up there. But I always like more people, more the
Yeah.
merrier.
Yeah.
Building a community here. And so I want to be in my community.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we do is, because I've also got a very decent following on LinkedIn. So when the episodes release, I then also promote it so that people can find you. Because for me, it's about building global communities to try and keep us all sane.
I'll
We
post
want
it
to
on
we
my
want to
link. I always
thrive.
post it on my LinkedIn too. I do one on LinkedIn. I'll do one every day of the week on all of my stuff. I have TikTok. We'll have Instagram, Facebook, X. My ex is really not a great. It's
Yeah,
like
mine. I don't.
nobody's on my ex account. I don't think I'm going to be doing X for very much longer. But yeah. So yeah, go to our social media, everybody. Be part of our community. Friend us, like us,
Yes.
subscribe. Oh, and YouTube. You can find this episode on YouTube as well as Spotify and iHeart and all that other stuff. But I do have a LinkedIn a YouTube channel, so go there and subscribe. I probably have like 20 people, but I'm building it. I'm
Yeah,
building
we're building it. That's the thing. And that's how we build it, collaborating. So I send people that have been following me to the people that interview me, because if someone wants to learn something from you, it's about sharing the resources.
Right.
And I love that. So yeah, we
Me too.
tend to do a big promotion when the episode comes out as well on our.
And where else in the world can I be speaking to somebody in Australia and I live in California? Like, hello. How awesome is that?
I know. Amazing. Thank
Well,
God for
Wendy,
podcasting.
yes, this is fun. I'm having such a good time. I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time, and
Pleasure.
and everybody out there that stayed to the end to listen. Thank you for coming back. We appreciate you. And just remember, everybody, this is our one life. Be good to one another, and yeah, just be good to one another. I think that's my message. Anyways, everybody, take care. Thank you.
Yeah, take care.
Low, talking about the days we used to know. VCR tapes and dial-up tones, raising kids living with achy bones. Leather jackets and big hair days, now it's carpool lines and PTA. Neon dreams turn into schoolyard fights, but our hearts glow in retro nights. We are Gen X, living both worlds. From cassette tapes to a digital world. Parenting now with a nod to the past. The retro love we know will last. We are Gen X, living both worlds. From cassette tapes to a digital world. A nod to the past, the retro love we know will last. We dance to the beats of the boombox sound. Now bedtime stories echo all around. But deep inside, we're the mixtape kings, still fighting life with arcade dreams. A pizza slice, telling tales with a side of advice.